Well, first up, let's get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election that's taking place in India. As election fever grips the nation, political parties are intensifying their efforts to secure victory. Over the weekend, Prime Minister Narendra Modi led 2 public rallies, while the Congress party countered with 2 mega rallies of its own. More details in this report.
With the general elections in India just round the corner, political parties have intensified their campaigns across the nation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a public rally in Saharanpur city of North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Prime Minister Modi launched a scathing attack on the Congress party over its manifesto linking it to the Muslim League.
कांग्रेस के घोषणा पत्र में वही सोच झलकती है जो सोच आजादी के आंदोलन के समय मुस्लिम लीग में थी। कांग्रेस के घोषणा पत्र में पूरी तरह मुस्लिम लीग की छाप है और इस मुस्लिम लीग वाले घोषणा पत्र में जो कुछ हिस्सा बचा खुचा रह गया उसमें वामपंथी पूरी तरह हावी हो चुके हैं।
Following Saharanpur rally, PM Modi held another election rally in Ajmer city of Rajasthan. Later in the evening, he held a roadshow in Ghaziabad, Uttar Pradesh. On the other hand, day after releasing their manifesto, Congress held a mega rally in Jaipur city of Rajasthan. Several senior leaders, including party president Mallikarjun Kharge and former party president Sonia Gandhi, were present in the rally.
जो हमारी 5 न्याय गारंटी है और उसके तहत 25 गारंटी हमने आपको करके देने का वायदा कर रहे हैं। अगर हमारी सरकार आई, निश्चित रूप से हम सभी गारंटी को अमल में लाएंगे।
Later in the evening, Rahul Gandhi, along with several senior Congress leaders, held a mega rally in Hyderabad, the capital of southern state of Telangana. The Communist Party of India released its manifesto for Lok Sabha elections on Saturday, promising significant changes, including scrapping of Citizenship Amendment Act and enhancing daily wages under Manrega.
Let's now take you across to DD India's Vishal Baristo, joining us live from Jaipur for more on this. Good evening, Vishal. Rajasthan was battleground today between the ruling BJP and the main opposition party, the Congress. How fierce was the clash?
Well, Gautam, a very good evening to you. Right now I'm in Ajmer and we had a mega rally of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the afternoon earlier in the day, and that was in Pushkar. And Pushkar is known for the only Brahma temple, the Hindu god in the world, and Ajmer is known for its dargah of Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. So this is a place of pilgrimage for the Muslims in the subcontinent largely, and for the Hindus all across the world. And Ajmer has always been a stronghold of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is ruling both at the centre and the incumbent, and the state which has won from Congress last year. So Ajmer is like not a very easy contest for the Bharatiya Janata Party, because barring one victory of Sachin Pilot, Congress has not won Ajmer in the last 2 decades. So it is going to be a very interesting contest as far as Ajmer seat is concerned. Ajmer goes to poll on the 26th of April, which is the second round in Rajasthan. Rajasthan has 2 phases. The first is the 19th April and the second is 26th April. And Prime Minister has been focusing on Rajasthan. Yesterday he was there in Churu, which is in the Shekhawati region of the desert state, and today he was in Ajmer. Congress party also held a rally there in Jaipur, the capital city of the state of Rajasthan. Congress is trying very hard to somehow gather its strength, because it has lost the assembly election because of the infighting between the Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot and the former Deputy Chief Minister during his regime, Sachin Pilot. So if we talk about the strength of both the parties, BJP looks quite confident and it is eyeing all the 25 seats. Last time in 2019, BJP won 24, but one went to the Rashtriya Loktantrik Party, that was in Nagaur.
Okay.
Gautam?
Now, how crucial is the state of Rajasthan to both these main parties? It may not have as many Lok Sabha seats as some other more populous states like UP, Maharashtra, West Bengal or Bihar. But how high does it remain on the priority list of these rivals in terms of winning its contest?
Well, absolutely. Rajasthan does not have that many seats like you have 40 in Bihar and 80 in Uttar Pradesh. But yes, Rajasthan has 25 seats and BJP would like to rest all of them, because as I told you that last time it had won 24 seats, and ever since Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over the reins of the country, it has been easygoing, a cakewalk for the Bharatiya Janata Party in Rajasthan. And Congress would also like to improve its tally, because last time it scored only a big zero. So Congress is trying to improve its tally. They are trying very hard, but as far as the campaigning goes, it has already lagged far behind. This was the third rally of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Earlier it was first was in Kotputli, which is midway from Jaipur to Delhi. The second one yesterday in Churu, and today back to back in Ajmer. So 25 seats, but definitely very crucial as far as BJP is concerned, because it wants to have all the 25 seats. It is targeting 400 plus, as Prime Minister has been saying during his campaign. But Congress would also like to improve, and even if it wins one seat, then also it improves its tally of last year. But Congress has made some calculative arrangements this time in Rajasthan. It has left the Nagaur seat for RLP, which RLP won last year. It is also in a tacit understanding with the tribal parties in Banswara, which is bordering Gujarat. But BJP is going all on its own, and it is contesting on all the 25 seats. Gautam?
Okay, all right. Let's see how it goes. As you said, it's going to be decided in 2 phases in Rajasthan. So, of course, we'll only find out in June what the outcome will be. Thanks for joining us for the moment. Now, managing logistics in a country with 968 million voters is an incredible task, and it will be carried out by the Election Commission of India when the country holds its general elections. Our next report tells you more about the Election Commission of India's role and its powers.
After India became independent in 1947, the founding fathers of the Indian Republic envisaged a representative parliamentary democracy based on the universal adult franchise. Keeping in line with those ethos, the Election Commission of India was established on 25th of January 1950. The ECI is an autonomous constitutional body responsible for conducting and regulating polls. Its powers are broadly divided into 3 categories: administrative, advisory and judicial. The administrative powers include registration of eligible voters, preparation of poll schedule depending on the availability of resources both in terms of execution and security needs, scrutinize nomination papers of candidates. The poll body's most important task is to ensure the fairness of the electoral process and prevent incidents of rigging, booth capturing and violence. Coming to advisory powers, the ECI can recommend the President and the state governors to disqualify sitting members of Parliament and members of legislative assemblies respectively if they are found guilty of indulging in corrupt practices during polls. As for the judicial powers, the Election Commission cannot review any poll result on its own. This can only be done through an election petition which can be filed before the High Court. But the ECI can settle disputes related to recognition of political parties. Apart from ensuring free and fair elections, the poll body has also been organizing various awareness campaigns to increase voter turnout. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has minced no words on the nation's war against terrorism. He has told a private television network that India will not hesitate to cross the border to hunt down terrorists seeking shelter in Pakistan. Here's more.
India has laid down a hard line once again when it comes to its policy of zero tolerance against terror. In an interview given to a private television news network, the nation's defence minister minced no words on the extent to which the Indian government is willing to go to punish perpetrators of terrorism, even if it means crossing international boundaries. The minister said, "If any terrorist attempts to disturb India from a neighbouring country attempts to carry out acts of terrorism here, we will give a befitting reply. If that person escapes to Pakistan, we will go beyond the border to kill such a person. Whatever the Prime Minister has said, I stand by it. India has the strength and ability to do it, and Pakistan has also begun to understand it." The Defence Minister was responding to a query based on a report published in the UK's publication, The Guardian, which alleges that after the Pulwama terror attack in 2019, India adopted the strategy of eliminating individuals threatening its national security in foreign lands. The report is completely source-based and makes no attribution to any named individual or official in making these charges. India's External Affairs Ministry officials have denied all the charges made by The Guardian, terming them false and malicious anti-India propaganda. A previous statement by External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has also been cited, wherein he says the targeted killings in other countries are not the policy of Government of India.
And still to come on DD India News are: the Philippines and China trade accusations over an encounter in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says Chinese overcapacity issue won't be solved soon during a China visit. And US President Joe Biden's campaign raises over $90 million in March, $187 million in Q1 of 2024.
The land of Dravidians, Tamil Nadu goes to polls in one go. How will the National Party's alliance face the political heat with the regional satraps? What are the issues that could find resonance among the voters as India decides? Will the vote share increase help the national parties get a foothold in the minds of the people? Watch Why Tamil Nadu Matters on the Great Indian Election at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT only on TD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. The United States is on high alert and preparing for a possible attack by Iran targeting Israeli or American assets in the region in response to Israel's strike on the Iranian consulate in Syria. Tehran is currently preparing a response after a suspected Israeli strike killed an Iranian military commander and several advisors this week. Meanwhile, the Hezbollah, its main proxy in the West Asian region, warned the Jewish state that it is prepared for war. Iran has asked the US to step aside if it wants to avoid getting hit. And Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has said that 7 Iranian military advisors died in the strike, including Mohammad Reza Zahedi, a senior commander of its Quds force, which is an elite foreign espionage and paramilitary arm. Iran also said that it reserves the right to take a decisive response. US President Biden discussed the threat from Iran during a phone call on Thursday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Lebanon's armed group Hezbollah has said that Israel's strike on Iran's consulate in Damascus marked a turning point in the Israel-Gaza conflict. In a televised remark that were put out, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said it supports Iran's right to punish Israel and a response from Iran's side is coming soon. Meanwhile, Israel has braced itself for the possibility of retaliatory attack, cancelling leave for all combat units and mobilizing more troops for air defense units. And in the middle of all this, a new round of diplomatic efforts is being made to ease tension between Israel and Hamas. Negotiators of the US, Israel and Hamas are going to meet in the Egyptian capital of Cairo over the weekend for a renewed push to reach a ceasefire deal. Here's a detailed report.
A fresh round of talks aimed at arranging Gaza ceasefire in exchange for hostages held by Hamas is being planned for Cairo this weekend. The US President Joe Biden wrote letters to Egyptian President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi and the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Ahmad Al Thani, in this regard, and urged them to secure commitments from the Hamas to agree and abide by a deal. Biden also told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to empower his negotiators in Cairo so that a deal could be reached without any delay. Hamas in a statement said that its delegation headed by the group's deputy chief in Gaza, Khalil al-Haya, will go to Cairo on April 7 for ceasefire talks. The United States and its allies view a ceasefire essential for the entry of more humanitarian aid to Gaza. In the latest proposal, Israel will have to agree to a 6-week ceasefire in exchange for the release of sick, elderly and wounded hostages held by Hamas. The UN chief Antonio Guterres said that he sincerely hopes Israel will quickly and effectively boost aid access to the Gaza Strip, describing the situation in the Palestinian enclave after 6 months of war as absolutely desperate.
The Israeli government has acknowledged mistakes and announced some disciplinary measures. But the essential problem is not who made the mistakes. It is the military strategy and procedures in place that allow for those mistakes to multiply time and time again. Fixing those failures requires independent investigations and meaningful and measurable changes on the ground.
On the other hand, pressure has been mounting on the White House and Western governments to stop arming Israel. More than 30 Democratic members of the US House of Representatives have called for a full halt to the transfer of weapons to Israel in a letter to President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Meanwhile, Israel's borders remained tensed on Saturday. 3 large explosions were seen. One close to the Israel-Gaza border and 2 explosions noticed close to Israel-Lebanon border. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take you across straight to Tel Aviv, where DD India's Alex Kadir is joining us to give us more on how things are developing. Hello, Alex. We've got ceasefire talks recommencing on one hand and a high alert situation on the other. Can the negotiators muster the level of skill that's required in such a contentious situation or conditions to make any progress towards peace?
Well, they're certainly under enormous pressure to do so. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, was told by Joe Biden, the US President, of course Israel's largest ally, that he has to give his negotiators room to operate, room to strike a deal, and that will be a big focus for David Barnea, the head of the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, and Ronan Bar, the head of Shin Bet, the security agency, who are leading that Israeli delegation. Now, the mediators between them, the CIA Director Bill Burns, as well as Egyptian and Qatari officials. And on the other side, of course, Hamas's deputy leader will be there. Now, this is the first time in weeks that both delegations have been there at the same time. So that is certainly movement, but that doesn't necessarily mean progress. But that, against the backdrop of very sad news here in Israel, 47-year-old Elad Katzir, who was taken hostage during the October 7th atrocities. His body has been recovered by the Israeli Defense Forces in a targeted operation in Han Yunis. It was buried in a refugee camp there. The IDF saying that he was held hostage since October, but he was killed by Palestinian Islamic Jihad in January. His mother was also kidnapped on October 7th, but released in a deal, and his father, very sadly, was killed on October 7th. His sister said she blames the Israeli government, saying he could have been released if a deal happened in time, but the Israeli leadership are cowards and only motivated by political considerations. That the sister of that hostage whose body has now been recovered. So immense domestic pressure on the Israeli government to reach a deal, and increased pressure from Qatar, from Egypt, on Hamas to reach a deal as well. But again, these two sides are still very far apart. They're heading to Cairo, hoping maybe they can make some progress on these ceasefire talks.
And now, could Iran actually take action directly against the US or Israel, because they're taking this threat, the current threat, very seriously? Although Iran hasn't done it so far, it's confined itself to using alleged proxies. But if that changes, what could be the possible fallout?
Well, this is the real concern. This is the real fear. The fallout could be a massive escalation. The fallout, in the worst case scenario, could be war between Iran and Israel. And we know that there have been a lot of diplomatic efforts by the United States to avoid that from happening. But the Iranians saying they will vow to retaliate, to get revenge, to punish Israel for the crime of striking that building adjacent to the Iranian embassy in Damascus. That's according to Iranian officials. We've also heard from Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, saying that retaliation is definitely coming. So the feeling here in Israel is not a question of if that retaliation will come, but when. And US intelligence sources telling the CBS News in the United States that a swarm of explosive drones could be used to strike back against Israel. So clearly anticipation, apprehension. Now we'll then look to Israel's response, and if it is again an escalation, a stronger strike, a bigger strike, then there's a real risk of war in this region beyond the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Well, I hope that does not happen, because that would indeed be extremely worrisome for the entire world, not just the region itself. But let's see what happens, Alex, particularly in Cairo. Thanks a lot for joining us for the time being. Amidst the escalating tension between Russia and Ukraine, a devastating strike on Kharkiv has claimed 8 lives and left 11 other people injured, as Ukrainian forces hold firm against Russian advances in Ceasefire. Meanwhile, Russia's strike has extended to Zaporizhia, where missile attacks resulted in further casualties and widespread destruction.
A Russian strike on Ukraine's Kharkiv has wreaked havoc as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine moves into a crucial stage. 6 individuals lost their lives in the incident on Saturday, while at least 11 more were hurt. According to Ukraine's national police, the assault was carried out by drones, resulting in significant damage to a high-rise apartment building and engulfing a shop in flames.
Our enemy conducted 2 missile strikes, and unfortunately 6 people are dead and 11 are wounded. The condition of the wounded is stable and they are in hospitals.
In the eastern Ukrainian town of Ceasefire, Ukrainian forces continue to hold their ground despite repeated attempts by Russian troops to breach their defenses. Friday witnessed Russian troops entering the suburbs of Ceasefire, further north near Bakhmut. This fortified town remains a crucial stronghold for Kiev against the advancing Russian forces. In another part of Ukraine, Russia was said to have launched 5 missiles on the southern city of Zaporizhia. The strikes resulted in the death of at least 3 individuals, with over 20 others getting injured. Several residential buildings were damaged in the onslaught. On Saturday, air raid alerts were issued for Kharkiv and other parts of Ukraine, including capital Kiev, in the wake of these attacks. However, no significant damage was reported by Kiev authorities. The recent spate of attacks underscored the escalating tensions between the two nations. Ukraine has intensified its drone operations targeting Russian assets, particularly focusing on oil refineries. In turn, Russia has fortified its defenses in eastern Ukraine and continues bombarding other Ukrainian cities.
Indeed, India's Dasha Chernisova joins us live from Moscow for more updates. Good evening to you, Dasha. What is Moscow's assessment of the conflict at this stage? Ukraine's forces seem to be on the back foot due to a shortfall in weapon supply. Everyone's been talking about it in the West, but they're leveraging what they can to keep hitting back, especially drones.
Well, the assessment in Moscow is not changing, and Moscow insists that it will achieve the goals of what it calls its special military operation in Ukraine. That's why it is targeting the military-industrial complex of Ukraine. They are using the high-precision long-range weapons to hit the places where the Western ammunition is stored, where the weapons, where the people are located, the military people are located. And Moscow keeps insisting that it is not targeting the civilian infrastructure of the Ukrainian side. In the meantime, Moscow says it has been also launching strikes against the energy infrastructure of Ukraine in response to the drone attacks against the Russian oil refineries. Over the past weeks, we've seen many drones from Ukraine targeting the oil refineries and also causing a lot of discussion when it comes to the energy prices globally. So Russia insists that Ukraine is doing so, is resorting to the use of drones against the shortcomings of its military on the battlefield. So the understanding in Moscow is that the operation will be ongoing until all goals are achieved, and there is no question as to if, but rather than when, Russia fully succeeds to complete these goals.
All right. Now, has Russia found any concrete evidence yet to back its allegations against Ukraine related to the concert hall terror attack?
Well, according to the information we have from the investigative committee, the investigators have managed to analyze the phones of the terrorists. They also have the testimonies of those terrorists. Now, we understand from what we have learned that there are multiple ways to link this attack to the operation in Ukraine as well as to Ukraine. The investigators say that they have proof that the terrorists were receiving cash and cryptocurrency from Ukraine. In one of the phones, they found the email, the text exchange when the Kharkiv City Hall was identified as the target for the terrorist attack on the second anniversary of the start of Russia's operation, so on the 24th of February 2024. They also have found pictures of the Ukrainian soldiers with the Ukrainian flags wearing camouflage. So all that leads the Russian investigators to believe that there are links with Ukraine. However, the full investigation has not been completed yet. They are supposed to establish all the links, saying that indeed those were the radical Islamists from the Islamic State bent in Russia who committed this act of terrorism. But again, they were not able to carry it out on their own. So the Russian investigators are looking as to who has ordered these terrorist attacks on the Russian soil.
Okay, let's see which way that probe goes. Fairly extensive, and I believe the 11th person is now under detention. Thanks for joining us, Dasha, on the show. And still to come on DD India News Hour, we'll be talking to our expert guest about Iran's latest warning to the US and Israel after its embassy was attacked in Damascus, killing a top Quds Force commander earlier this week. India's IMD issues heatwave alert for parts of southern and eastern India for the next 2 days. And a total solar eclipse is set to occur on the 8th of April. Stay with us and we'll tell you more interesting details about it.
Welcome to this special broadcast on film festivals behind the scenes. Two eminent guests joining us to take forward what exactly is the need of cinema. How does one see the significance, the importance of film festivals in today's times?
Film industry globally celebrates cinema. Film festival is much more than a costume parade. International film festivals have now established themselves as venues where art, commerce and technology of cinema meets.
Film festivals really serve as a bridge, and they bring the community together, they bring the cineasts together. I think festivals have been able to keep the spirit alive.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now take you back to one of our top stories where the US is now on high alert over Iran's warning of hitting back at either its or Israel's assets in West Asia after Israel struck the Iranian embassy in Syria's Damascus earlier this week. What does this mean for the Israel-Hamas conflict and its aftermath is what we're talking about today with our expert guest Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary, the Ministry of External Affairs. Good evening to you, Mr. Bhattacharya. What do you think of this warning? The US and Israel seem to be taking it very seriously this time around, but is Israel really going to step in the manner that it hasn't done so far in this conflict and widen it further?
Well, you see, a deliberate airstrike on a diplomatic premise is truly an extraordinary event. And I think it signals two very important things. The first is it is in clear violation of international laws and conventions. And this is something that just does not happen in normal times. The second big consequence of this is that it threatens that the lack of stability and the conflagration that is currently ongoing between Israel and Palestine now threatens to spill over to a wider ramification in the region, and runs the risk of actually drawing in other parties into this particular confrontation. And that's a very, very serious thing as well. So I think what has happened in Damascus was terrible and should not have happened. And the kind of response that we've seen from the Iranian side, it has had comments from its supreme leader as well as the leader of the Revolutionary Guards saying that there will be retaliation. And at the same time, the Iranians have also set up a channel of communication directly with the Americans through the Swiss who represent the Americans in Tehran, telling them about their intentions. And understandably, the Americans are concerned about this development. You would recall that this is not the first time that there has been an attack on Iranian interests, and the last time when Soleimani was killed, there was a quick reprisal from the Iranian side. So I think this is something that the US and Israel should definitely take seriously.
And Iran has said that the US should step aside and perhaps the principal focus might be Israel itself. But the US, why is the US taking this threat so seriously vis-a-vis its own assets?
So, as you know, and I mentioned that Iran has already sent out a message to the Iranians, to the Americans. The Americans seemingly were not informed in advance about the specific airstrike, which, as I was saying, is in violation of international conventions. And Americans do not wish to be part of this. The American response, which is learned unofficially, was that they have told the Iranians to stay away from US assets. And if that is what the response was, it also indicates that they expect that the Iranians will respond, will retaliate, and they expect that it would be proportionate and only on Israeli targets. And what those Israeli targets would be is anybody's guess. The initial intelligence reports from the US side seems to suggest that there would be drone attacks and perhaps even cruise missiles that could be targeted towards Israeli targets. But what it is going to be and when it is going to be, I think is going to be Iran's choosing now at this stage.
Well, Israel has its own defenses. It's called up people who are on leave as well to man those air defenses and other paraphernalia that it has to defend itself. But at the same time, there's tremendous pressure on Israel to do just the opposite of what it has done in Damascus. The pressure is from the US to temper things down in the wake of what's happened with the aid workers and the fact that there's another round of talks that's supposed to get underway in Cairo from Sunday.
So what the Israelis done is also quite expected. They have called in their reservists. They have stopped all the leave that the IDF would have wanted to take, and they have stepped up their defenses. They've also cut off the GPS location finding systems so that the targeting, if it were to be on Israeli targets on Israeli soil, would be affected. There are reports that people are getting proxy location targets, and all this is directed towards averting or minimizing the loss. But what it has happened is that it has put to risk Israeli citizens whose security has been undermined because of this particular attack by the Israeli side in Damascus. What it has also done is put questions on the process of negotiations that was underway, and there can be new questions that will come up. So this is definitely a very negative setback for any potential peace process of ceasefire or even discussions on the hostages. One would have wished that there would have been a more sensible approach to this, but I think things have been otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And what about the Hamas itself? Because the fact that we've not had that deal which was supposed to happen before Ramadan, even now when I think we're just about pretty close to Eid now, that a part of that blame, a large part of that blame is also resting on the shoulders of the Hamas, because it's just not coming midway. There's no meeting ground, it seems. Everyone begins with the extreme position when they sit down to talk.
Well, there is definitely a very serious lack and a crisis of leadership in that region. Hamas is, of course, squarely responsible for the lack of leadership on its part, because it has, in a sense, set off in motion the current situation. But the same thing should also be said of the Israeli leadership at this point of time. And there is a large degree of resentment and opposition within Israel about some of the actions and decisions that the leadership has taken. Because if the objective was to increase the security of Israel and of Israeli people, there are deep questions that are now being asked. And even the Americans who went along with the Algerian proposal at the Security Council calling for reforms, we have seen that calling for a ceasefire, we are seeing that has not yet happened. So I think it is on both sides, on both the Israeli leadership side as well as the Hamas leadership, where they have not been cooperative enough in bringing about the ceasefire that should have happened a long time ago. The loss of civilian lives has been unimaginable. There have been loss of lives of aid workers most recently, and the Israeli IDF has actually had to come out and apologize for that particular operation. So things are running a little out of control, and I think all sides have to take responsibility for this.
Yes, on a day when another hostage was found to be dead. His body was recovered as well by the Israeli forces, apparently killed in January itself. So anger, of course, building up among people on both sides, and yet there's no respite for them, either the Israelis or the Gazans who are caught up, the Palestinians who are caught up in Gaza in this conflict. Thanks for joining us for the moment to talk about it, Prasar Bharati. Now, in more international news, tens of thousands of people protested in Hungary against Prime Minister Viktor Orban on Saturday. The protesters, led by Peter Magyar, a former aide-turned-opponent, shouted slogans of "Orban resign." People took to streets after tape leaked pointing to Orban's interference in a graft case. Magyar became widely known in February when he unleashed incendiary comments about the inner workings of the government. He accused Antal Rogan, the minister who leads Orban's office, of running a centralized propaganda machine. Prosecutors are now investigating these statements. Presidential elections kicked off in Slovakia, with citizens reaching the polling stations to cast their ballots. The race now is between pro-Western opposition candidate Ivan Kurkok and Peter Pellegrini, Speaker of the National Council. Pellegrini's win will get PM Robert Fico an ally in the presidential palace. But if Kurkok emerges as the winner, Fico's pro-Russian stance and plans to reform criminal law and the media will be challenged. Slovak presidents do not have many executive powers, but they can veto laws or challenge them in the Constitutional Court. Shifting focus now to Asia Pacific. China and the Philippines are accusing each other over an encounter in the South China Sea. Responding to a claim by the Philippines on Saturday, China said that several ships belonging to the Philippines entered waters of the Nansha Islands, falling under Beijing's exclusive economic zone or sovereignty. Earlier, Philippines stated that China harassed the fishing vessels within Manila's exclusive economic zone in the South China Sea. Although China claims almost the entire South China Sea, it called the operation professional and in accordance with standards. But taking to social media site X, spokesperson of the Philippine Coast Guard wrote that the two Chinese Coast Guard vessels started harassing the Filipino fishing boats. Chinese Coast Guard vessels threatened the fishermen with water cannons and denied them access to the resources in the exclusive economic zone. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng announced plans for exchange and balanced economic growth, aiming to address U.S. concerns over China's manufacturing capacity. Following talks in Guangzhou on Saturday, both Yellen and He Lifeng agreed to establish a forum to combat money laundering in their financial systems.
The potential to flood our markets with exports that make it difficult for American firms to compete, and that other countries have the same concern. Now, this is a complicated issue that involves their entire macroeconomic and industrial strategy. It's not going to be solved in an afternoon or a month, but I think they have heard that this is an important issue to us.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has reiterated the country's commitment to its policies of neighbourhood first and Sagar. Acknowledging Maldives Minister of Foreign Affairs' post on thanking India for allowing export of essential commodities to the island nation, Dr. Jaishankar said, and I quote, India stands firmly committed to its neighbourhood first and Sagar policies. The 7th of April marks World Health Day and also the founding anniversary of the World Health Organization. On the eve of World Health Day, WHO's Regional Director of Southeast Asia region, Saima Wazeed, spoke extensively on the notable progress that Southeast Asia region and the organization's commitment to continuing pushing for progress.
Our Southeast Asia region has made notable progress in advancing this right to health, from enhancements in health coverage to declines in maternal and child mortality rates. There are achievements to be celebrated. We remain steadfast in our commitment to a rights-based approach to health. We must ensure equality, participation, and accountability in healthcare decision-making processes.
India's largest political party, the BJP, celebrated its 45th founding day on Saturday. The party was founded on the 6th of April back in 1980 and has emerged as the largest political party in the world. BJP's party president JP Nadda hoisted the party flag at its headquarters in New Delhi. He congratulated the party men for the achievements of the Bharatiya Janata Party. The party president said that the BJP is the only party which, since the days of the Jansangh, has been continuously moving ahead with its ideological foundation of nationalism. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah also extended their greetings on the foundation day of the BJP to party workers. Renowned Indian TV actress Deepika Chikalia, famed for her role in the iconic series Ramayana, on Saturday graced the 14th anniversary celebrations of Janajati Kalyan Ashram in Kathmandu. The event, attended by notable personalities, highlighted the organization's efforts in supporting tribal children across Nepal. Chikalia's presence encouraged philanthropy and community service, fostering support for education among the attendees. A total solar eclipse is set to occur on the 8th of April. The celestial phenomenon, where the moon completely obscures the sun, casting a shadow on Earth, will move across Mexico, the United States and Canada, but will not be visible from the Indian subcontinent. The eclipse is set to commence over the South Pacific Ocean, with the first point of contact on continental North America being Mexico's Pacific coast at approximately 11:07 a.m. So many changes will occur during this solar eclipse. This will be a total solar eclipse and would be a memorable event as it is going to be occurring after 54 years. Tech giant Meta will begin labeling a wider range of videos, audio and image content as made with AI on its platforms including Facebook and Instagram starting in May to counter manipulated media. According to an official statement, Meta's new policy is a response to feedback from its independent oversight board, which urged an update to the current policy. The labels could be generated through self-disclosure when a user posts content as a result of advice from fact-checkers or via Meta detecting invisible markers of AI-made content. Meta also underscored the usage of realistic AI-generated tools to create content like audio and photos and its evolution at present. US President Joe Biden's re-election campaign announced on Saturday that it raised over $187 million in the first quarter of 2024, almost double what it took in during the previous quarter. In March alone, when Biden clinched the Democratic Party's nomination, the campaign raised more than $90 million, up from over $53 million the previous month. The team also reported $192 million in cash on hand, which is said to be the highest total amassed by any Democratic candidate in history at this point in the cycle. Biden's campaign has been pulling in more money ahead of November's election than that of his Republican rival Donald Trump. Analysts attribute that to Biden's incumbent status and support from Democratic predecessors. Ecuadorian authorities arrested former Vice President Jorge Glass on Friday evening, seizing him from the Mexican embassy and prompting Mexico to suspend bilateral relations. Glass, convicted twice for corruption, had been holed up in the embassy in Quito since seeking political asylum in December, arguing he was being persecuted by the Attorney General's office. The police forcefully entered Mexico's embassy in Quito before making the arrest. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador posted on X. Meanwhile, tension has risen in Ecuador after the arrest of the ex-VP from the Mexican embassy. Let's now take a look at some of the other updates coming in from around the world as well. In a special landing exercise, frontline fighter aircraft of the Indian Air Force Sukhoi 30 MKI made a touchdown on the Lucknow-Agra Expressway in Unnao city of India's Uttar Pradesh on Saturday. The images showing the aircraft making the touchdown have also surfaced. India's Vice President and Chairperson of the Upper House of Parliament, the Rajya Sabha, Jagdeep Dhankar, administered oath to the elected members of the Rajya Sabha on Saturday. The oath-taking ceremony took place in Parliament House. With a hotter summer predicted in India this year, the eastern city of Bhubaneswar in Odisha recorded the season's highest temperature at 43.5 degrees Celsius on Saturday. 8 people were admitted to different hospitals due to the heat-related issues. According to weather authorities, severe heat wave will last for the next 2 days. And time now to get some sporting updates as well. Indian shuttler Anupama Upadhyay bagged the Kazakhstan International Challenge Women's Singles title in Uralsk on Saturday. Anupama trounced fellow Indian player Isha Rani Barwahin in straight games 21-15, 21-16 to win the title. Anupama, who won the National Games gold last year, Anupama, who won the Games gold last year, displayed her tremendous control over the net against Isha Rani as she fetched winners at ease with the net dribble. Let's talk about hockey now. Tom Wickham scored a brace as Australia routed India 5-1 in the first hockey match in Perth ahead of the Paris Olympics. The hosts dominated the proceedings throughout the game as they scored a goal in every quarter. Tim Brand opened the scoring early in the first half before Tom Wickham extended the lead. Joel Rintala and Wickham scored to put the result beyond doubt, though Gurjant Singh netted a lone goal for the visitors after a lightning-quick counter-attack before Australia extended the lead through Flynn Ogilvy to make the scoreline 5-1. The 5-match series is crucial for India ahead of the Paris Olympics. 3 weeks have gone by since their captivating clash in the FA Cup quarter-final, and now perennial rivals Manchester United and Liverpool collide once more. This Sunday, they meet at the iconic Old Trafford Stadium for another showdown in the Premier League. The two fierce rivals are set to face off for the third time this season. The high-voltage encounter is another significant one for their respective campaigns. Liverpool leads the Premier League charts, closely followed by Arsenal and Manchester City. The Reds have already won the EFL Cup and will be looking to win the Premier League and the UEFA Europa League as well. Meanwhile, Manchester United are 6th on the table, 11 points behind 4th-placed Aston Villa. And people are flocking to a flower park in the city of Chiba Prefecture east of Tokyo, feasting their eyes on tens of thousands of tulips in full bloom. The annual Tulip Festival is underway and locals have planted around 60,000 tulips on a site spanning roughly 2,100 square meters. Well, it's getting too hot for tulips here in Delhi now, but we did have a decent crop back in February. On that note, thanks for joining this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X as well as Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as they break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.